So this morning I want to start off with two items, which is really Bible study, if I might take a minute or two. Because the first reading from Jeremiah today is one of the classics, which talks about a new covenant. Now that's a Bible word, covenant. The best way that I can explain covenant, they always talk about the marriage covenant, and that's okay. But the covenant in the Bible is not between equals. It's between unequals, God and us. The best example in our world that I can think of for the covenantal love is the love that you parents have for your children. Because most parents love their children no matter what. No matter how the children treat you parents, you still love them. That's the love between God and us. We are God's children in a sense. So in the days of Jeremiah with the Jews, they believe that Moses made the eternal, lasting covenant with the Jewish people on Mount Sinai. Okay? Jesus came and said, I'm going to give you a new covenant in my body and blood, in the crucifixion, Last Supper, resurrection. That's what we Christians believe. Jeremiah, one of the few times in the Old Testament that the scriptures talk about a new covenant is in Jeremiah. But this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel. I will put my law within them, I'll write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Jeremiah, we believe, was talking about the new covenant that Jesus established that we Christians follow. Now, don't criticize the Jews for not accepting it, because it's hard to change. Because 600 years after Jesus, Muhammad came and said, I'm going to give you a new covenant. We do not accept that. Muslims do. So that's a little bit of the foundation in the first reading about covenant. And then in the gospel, people get confused by this love and hate business. Let's see. The person who loves their life loses it, and the person who hates their life in this world will keep it for life eternal. Now remember, in the Bible, love and hate are not emotions like we think of them. They are decisions of the mind, how we live our lives. To love your life in the Bible means that you use it for yourself. To hate your life means that you're willing to live your life for others. It's just almost the opposite of what we might normally think in our world today. Because then Jesus said, whoever serves me must follow me. And where I am, there will my servant be. Whoever serves me, the Father will honor. I don't know if that helps, but those are two little Bible annotations. Today's my little meditation about today. Because it's all centered, a gospel about dying to our selfishness, our self-centeredness. The fact that it's human nature that we think that we are the center of the world. We focus on our needs and our wants and our fears and our desires, our ambitions, our agenda, the way we think things should be done. And there's all kinds of examples about that. And that's what you're asked to think about for that first question on the red papers. What is it that I need to die to? Because we're all different. We would all have different answers to that. But the goal is that we would begin to take the center of attention off of ourselves and place it on the needs and the wants of others. Story is told about a man moved into town and he bought a house right across from the railroad tracks. And he noticed every morning that there was an elderly woman walking down the tracks, picking up things and putting it in her sack. Well, after a couple days, the curiosity got the best of him, so he went to the mom and pop grocery store that had been there forever and said, what's all that about? And the grocer said, well, that's Widow Jacobs. She lives across town, very poor, cannot even support herself. And she comes out every morning after the train goes through, and she picks up pieces of coal, takes them home so she can heat her home and cook her food. And the man said, there hasn't been a steam locomotive using coal through this town for years. And the man said, yeah, I know that. But he said the owner of the hardware store, realizing her fate, comes out very early in the morning and puts coal on the track. And then she comes and picks it up because he knows she's in need. It's a simple example, but that's what dying to ourself must be, that it broadens our vision about the needs and the wants and the concerns of others. That's what this Lent is supposed to help us with, to broaden our vision in our little world in which we live and circulate. But the other challenge is, while we work on that we also work together to change our world, to make it a better example of the kingdom of God. Jesus did not come just so his followers would get to heaven after we die. Jesus came that his followers would transform this world here, now, today, through us. So many people say God is absent in our world. And if that's true, it's because we who follow God don't make God present. 1933, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Many of you know that he was a Lutheran pastor in Germany. Eventually was sent to a concentration camp and killed. But he spoke out against Hitler. But he bemoaned the fact that at 1933, there were 2,500 Lutheran clergymen that favored Hitler. 2,500 Lutheran clergymen opposed Hitler. But 25,000 clergymen would not take a stand. There's the challenge. Same thing happened in our country and during the days of Dr. Martin Luther King. If you read his letters from the Birmingham jail, his biggest problem was the clergymen around him would not support him. Everybody wanted to leave their hands off. And that's the challenge. That while we work at dying to selfishness within our own lives, that we also work on dying to selfishness in the society around us. I don't know if any of you read the little black book that we gave out before Lent. There's a copy in the Eucharistic Chapel. That's this one, in case you ever want to come and pray. But yesterday's example, Archbishop Dom Heller Camero of Brazil died in 1999. He said, "When I feed the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why there are poor, they call me a communist." We're here to die to ourselves, but to bring that message of Jesus into the whole society. That's the challenge. Now, realizing that as we do that, it gives our life meaning. That's what we're all struggling for. We want to give our lives meaning and purpose. And if you're around long enough, you will know that just satisfying our own desires will never give our life meaning and purpose. It's only when we reach out to others that we start to realize that we're really alive, that our life has meaning and purpose. That's the message of Jesus. That's what I believe Jesus asks for us, his followers. A blind man had set up a table that he was selling his items in a train station, a busy train station. After he had the whole thing set up, some children were running through the station and they hit his table and they knocked everything on the floor. So he was down on his knees, picking up all of his items and feeling what they were so he could place them back on the table. And a businessman was rushing through the station on his way to catch a train to work, and he noticed what had happened, and then he stopped for a moment, looked back, looked at his watch. You could see that he was contemplating, if I stop and help, I'm going to miss my train, and so on. So finally he put his satchel down, and he got down on his hands and knees, and he helped the blind man pick up all of his items and sort them on the table. When they were finished, he picked up his satchel and he walked away. And the blind man called to him, "Are you Jesus? Are you Jesus?" Give you a minute now to answer the questions, and then we'll collect the sheets with the basket.